Welcome back to Story Hustler, Murder, Mayhem, PTSD. I'm Dylan.
And I'm Mike.
And it is the anniversary of your retirement.
Oh my goodness, it's been how many years?
4 long years.
Yeah, too much home time for you.
No.
A lot has happened in those 4 years since I sort of cashed in my chips at Channel 3 and Channel 5 and said bon voyage.
Yeah.
A lot has happened over the course of that time, and a lot has happened in just
This summer.
in the last couple of weeks.
3 weeks.
We got news that you see my product placement, the Globe. You're headed overseas to play hoops.
Yeah, I'm out of here in a little bit.
See, I knew that I only had her here for a short period of time. I've been warning, so we got to kick out several more shows. Lots to talk about.
Lots to talk about.
Yeah, 4-year anniversary, and it's been wonderful, and I had a wonderful career working with those folks, which is interesting because we had a chance to sort of do that again.
Oh, yes. It's not over.
Yeah, well, so we were, the last couple of episodes, we were talking about
A deep dive into the Keep Sweet documentary on Netflix that talks about Warren Jeffs and just kind of like the past of what's happened previously in the years. So.
And that's interesting because they think they did a terrific job of giving people sort of the crash course, Warren Jeffs FLDS 101 course.
Yeah.
With those, and it was so well done by Rachel Dretson and their team. I just want to give them credit. But we're sort of looking at that as a historic vehicle that sort of told you that story up to that point. And I was in it to the extent I was sort of part of that history. And
just
it had
a small part.
Well, it did whatever. Yes, a tiny little cameo. But
all you did was hold the microphone.
Well, you see, I just carried the sticks for the camera guys. They did all the work. But it's nice because I
held the microphone for the women to tell their stories.
Okay, well, good. I see where they're going with that. Well, if that's what I did, I'm very pleased to have been a small part of it. But we're talking about that, and it really is sort of, my history and the history of that story, pretty up to date. And I was real happy to be part of history. I didn't really, and you know this, I didn't want to go back up there. I thought that town has moved on from the bad old days when I was going up there all the time.
It's a different place.
And that's one of the, we had a reason to get a first-hand look at it. And so as we've, in the past 2 episodes, looked at this very interesting sort of historic look at Warren Jeffs, suddenly you and I find ourselves on this story
wrapped up again
in real time, in the moment. What happened a couple of weeks ago?
Well, Ruth Stubbs, who was the young woman who finally was able to get a charge against the cop Rod Holm, who was a certified police officer who had married her when she was 15, 16?
16, yeah,
16,
I believe.
And impregnated her at the same age. She was one of the very first cases to actually go to court and get a guilty jury.
Yeah, and she didn't even want the beauty of that story, like all of the other women. She just wanted to get her kids out, and but yeah, keep going.
But then she called you, right, one night, and
so we had this long.
help.
Yeah, we have Ruth and I go way back, and she sat down and did this interview with us that turned out to be, I think, a real sort of influential moment, talking about this young woman trying to get her kids, but her husband is just statutorily a rapist of her. And it was explosive. She got him prosecuted, and the prosecution of Rod led to the prosecution of Warren. Mm-hmm. And it really was a series of dominoes. With that history, I know Ruth for many years, and she called me about 10 days ago and said, late night calls, so like so many of these stories start, that she has friends who have a missing daughter, and they're fearful. They need help, and it was the one phone call I couldn't say no to.
No, you can't say no to that at all.
So anyhow,
I think that's why you got in there, is to help like families and people who are affected by this, and women, and it's a young girl.
And a 17-year-old in this case, and it just made me harken back to all the stories that I sort of thought I was hoping that were in the past.
Well, it's not even the fact that she's like back in the community, 'cause sure, but the fact that Warren if for those who don't know, he has put out this new revelation that his son Helaman Jeffs is going to be like the new prophet.
Well, I think that's overstating it. The young man Helaman,
he's going to gather up everybody and start the celestial marriages again.
He is identified in this, and we got so many things to talk about. But we found a lot of interesting.
But this is what the worrisome thing is this new revelation, and this girl is getting sucked back in right now when this is kind of starting up again.
And the headline, I think. Warren does make reference to a son, which those of us who read the tea leaves outside this, what does that mean? Is this the new anointed? And who knows? But I think it was noteworthy that Helaman's name was mentioned in this revelation. Warren Jeffs on June 3rd put out a revelation. He's been spewing out edicts and dictates
from
to his
prison
for as long as he's been behind bars, and I'm not sure why that is. But he seems to have a pretty, slick conduit to get his message out. But he puts out this, what is characterized by both people inside the FLDS church and out as something sort of different than what he's done before. And it's called a revelation from God through Warren, or however they always have real fancy, ornate phrasing. But the headline is that the FLDS community is going to get back into the business of plural marriage. For about 10 years, depending on who you ask, because Warren is in prison and can't be married, he basically imposed unilaterally that he said nobody else in the community can be married. So there has been a hiatus of at least a decade, some people say longer. They've not done any plural celestial marriages. So the headline in this revelation is they're going to start doing them again. And that's the reaction. They don't say they're going to do underage marriages. They're just going to do plural celestial.
They never say that, Nick.
Well,
it's always implied.
Well, and that's the thing,
Read the fine print.
Okay, and that's my contention. When this opens,
But she's also 17 on the verge of 18. So, that is still incredibly young, but she's now of age. So, technically, she could get married off if they want to.
And she has been raised with seeing, except for a moment in her life, seeing no other option.
Yeah.
So, and these guys always cut the legal age close, but when they say they're going to start performing these plural celestial marriages, they say that. But the gravitational pull for these guys inevitably goes younger and younger, and this is why what is Exhibit A? It's Warren Jeffs, who is in a Texas prison cell for raping a 12-year-old girl on a ceremonial bed in a big fancy temple on that compound. And then this is where it leads. They say they start doing these marriages, and soon
the fact that he still has followers. And he's in prison for a crime that horrendous, and people are still, there is an element to this, how can you still follow that?
Yeah. Well, I've seen people, and I've talked to people inside the FLDS community, they will look you in the eye and say, that's fake. It was manufactured. It's not true. Somehow it was concocted in some great conspiracy does this sound similar to things we are hearing in the United States today? Yes, tell me.
Is that, obviously we have Mormon, ancestry.
Yes, we do.
So I was raised around, our Mormon relatives and, very aware of the religion.
It's very different from Mormon, which is different from the FLDS.
It's different from the FLDS, but it's just, when people kind of meet me and find out that, I have Mormon family, they're very, fascinated by this.
Oh, yes.
I don't know why, but for some reason,
a novelty.
It is, and for some reason, the sect of religion that is the Mormon, church, they're fascinated by it, and they're always, it's interesting, it's very culty, and
they're a little condescending.
And then I'll ask them, I'll be
even though we're not believers, it's still sort of offensive.
I'm not religious, but I do find it offensive. I'm my family, they're my extended family. I'm their religion's no crazier than any other religion.
Bingo.
But then I'll be so what are you religious? And I'm not religious. And I understand why some people are religious.
It was a great feeling. We tried with you.
Yeah, you tried real hard.
Okay.
But anyway, like, I'll be like, what are you? And they'll be like, oh, I'm Catholic, or oh, I'm Christian. And I just find it interesting that they think that Mormons are
that's normal.
That's so normal, and Mormons are weird. I'm like, you all think you have the right answer, and that's, whatever. But I find it hard to believe, like, well, what church actually does have the right answer?
Okay.
And it just starts to beg these questions, and it's just like the condescension between religions, I think, is very fascinating as an outsider myself.
Yeah.
It's like, the Catholic Church has been accused of raping little boys and
for decades, and
people
for centuries.
Just turn like a blind eye to this.
For centuries.
And then like Warren Jeffs and this, and it's like, oh my God, this man is nuts.
Yeah, this is a special kind of crazy, and the other, yes.
And yes, he is. He's a whack job criminal, like crazy, nuts, terrible person.
So anyhow,
but like,
I know why we're fired up. Yeah, no, and it's right, but we're fired up because literally we just produced 2 stories.
Okay, you say we. I had very little hand in this. I got the honor of shadowing you and the incredible Adrian, who worked so hard and produced such a beautiful video.
Give me a setup. What happened? You go up
to Colorado City.
We got the phone call. We're rambling.
I had work.
We're rambling, so we talked about getting a phone call from Rose Stubbs, an old friend of ours, and a hero in my Mount Rushmore of heroes in this story.
And she talked about this couple who she's
friends of
with.
Hers.
And she's like, their daughter was kidnapped on a camping trip.
This girl was out with her family, had finally gotten out of the community. They were trying to raise their children after the church took them away for a period of time.
The church took them away for the parents using a condom, and the church finds out everything about your life.
Well, they do inquisition.
Because they question you about everything, and so they told the truth, and they were labeled as murderers of unborn children for using a condom. And
it is a little startling in
the world today. It's just, this is another rant, but in the world today, that's just terrifying because, as we know, like reproductive health and women's rights and the right to choice for many people is under attack and completely gone at this point
by religious fanatics.
By religious people. And this is just an extreme version of, like, I feel like what could possibly continue to happen. Like, where is the edge? Where do you
seems
stop?
To actually be happening.
And it seems to be happening. And if you're not like aware or like conscious of The Handmaid's Tale,
the parallels are great in the Colorado
terrifying.
City. Hilldale.
It's a microcosm of what's happening in the country.
And I want to throw something in just because when covering this story over the course of time, if you wanted to do a story on the FLDS Church, you really had to go to Hilldale or Colorado City. That is not the case anymore.
No.
Those 2 towns, and this is when we did the stories for Channel 3, but one of the things I'd like to have gone into is that it's completely changed.
Scattered.
Well, yeah, it looks like Warren Jeffs has ordered the compounds didn't serve them well because they were able to raid them. I believe they still have a big property in South Dakota, but they're not doing compounds. And some people who live there told me that the population of Hilldale and Colorado City is probably now less than 10% in both of FLDS. They've moved. So this has made a complicated thing for this family that his daughter has been, she disappeared, and they're very concerned. Whatever the circumstances of her being, pulled back in, I think we can safely say that. So, we get the call from Ruth. The family has the daughter missing. Warren just recently has said we're back in the business of doing plural marriages. Again, this girl was just right on the bubble whether she'd be legal in a few months, but what choices she had up until this point. And so it seemed like a pretty desperate situation. So Adrian and I got in the car and went up and did the story and talked to this family, Dan and Maxine Jessup, and saw Ruth, of course, my other friend, and was able to spend some time, but produce these stories that I think have certainly fired you up, fired me up, because in some ways they're some of the most interesting stories I think I ever did. The narrative of that couple Dan and Maxine, their daughter, is gone, and I encourage people to find this. I think it's on the website of Channel 3 now. We'll try to get it up. But sitting down with this couple, you know, they're about 40 years old, and to hear them outline their story of sort of being, you know, utterly faithful followers and doing everything right, and then basically being screwed over by, you know, this sort of malicious, maniacal prophet who just seemed to like to toy with people's lives. And they got screwed over, and they got screwed over again, and kept being faithful and trying to repent, and got screwed over again, and now the cycle seems to be visiting.
Screwed over for practicing safe sex.
And the thing about this, when they confess to basically doing family planning during a time of that Warren was purging lots of families. This is the battle cry that law enforcement, people in the know, have been saying for 20 years. He was ripping apart families back then, and he just continued. A lot of purges, and this couple gets dragged in an inquisition with Lyle Jeffs, Warren's moronic thug brother, and ask if they're using birth control, and they confess, and they're immediately kicked out of town and ordered to give their 7 children over to this FLDS caretaker person, and they do for 3 years. But you know, and then they're told not only do they have to leave the church,
they gotta go 2 states away.
Yeah, they told you
how far they have to go. They're told everything.
And the surprise is, and they're really, I think, very decent, nice, good people, Dan and Maxine, and they're so open to why, and the natural questions. Why would you do that? How could you just possibly drive up to some caretaker woman's house and dump your 7 kids off and drive away for 3 years? How does that happen? And they're very candid about it. And so that story where we sort of outlined their life was, for me, one of the, and I'm glad you sort of got to witness Adrian and I putting that together.
Yeah, it was awesome to watch that.
But
it's a very sad story, and yeah, it does fire you up. I know it definitely fired me up, and it's a scary time.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel, and I think a lot of people feel this way. I know a lot of people feel this way, but like, I don't know. It's just like, if we continue to let like these things happen, like how far will they go?
Right. Well, and this is the thing of these guys. They say they're going to get back into celestial plural marriages, which, I mean, I'm sure they want that headline to me. All the girls are going to be of age, and we're going to follow the law.
It's going to be fine, and people are just choosing this lifestyle.
Yeah, don't look here. We're just going to start doing baptisms and plural marriages. Well, it's been my experience over the many years that I have covered that. They say that, and they inevitably do this. And so, you know, this is what gets these guys in trouble. So should people take some alarm? This is why I did the story. We've decided to do the stories, go up and help this family. We're going to try to stay in touch with Dan and Maxine and give an update. I'm hopeful they get the child back and use whatever time they can to heal. But we're hoping to have an update on Dan and Maxine's 17-year-old daughter. Again, both those stories on Channel 3's website.
Yeah, we'll definitely link those down below.
The AZ family and our friends at Channel 5 as well. So we'll going to continue to. I'm going to go back to being retired because this story, but I feel like we owe the audience some explanation what happens with this. And
we talked about like where it was now, and we didn't think that anything was bubbling up too much, and now it seems like there's a lot more happening.
And I think people should be aware that the headline from that revelation is they're back in the plural marriage business, and that seems to be what always inevitably gets them in trouble. That's been my experience. And then identifying this new son, Helaman. Maybe he just...
What a name.
His dad just was being kind and wanted to do something for his birthday, or maybe this is the anointment, or maybe...
Happy 18th birthday,
Yeah, I think he's a little...
Here are my people.
Well, and they're going to gather them up, and And the interesting thing is, I spoke to some FLDS folks, and they were reacting with great joy about that they're going to start doing the marriages again. They're all very happy about that.
Because they had like no kids, no marriages, no nothing for a while, right?
Yeah, well, that apparently is with
There were definitely children being born.
Well, it's, I'm not inside the bedroom, so who knows what's going on. But technically, they were not doing the marriages. They're back on, and the son is identified. And folks, those are, I think, headlines that people are going to watch this story. The FLDS greeted it with the elation, saying that families are going to be reunited. And that's probably, people are going to come back in. I don't know if that's a good thing, to have people who are out brought back into, what is, I think, a fairly destructive cult led by a convicted serial pedophile who has a cult full of, not all, but some of the guys are exactly the same. So is it a good thing that these families are being reunited inside back in the FLDS? I know that people
I guess it depends on what you believe.
Thank you very much. And usually isn't that the case?
Yeah.
So, anyhow, what do you think? What else?
I don't know. It's like a pretty good debrief of everything. I went on my rants, and it's just kind of scary.
It's a metaphor, I think, for it certainly has great parallels to The Handmaid's Tale, and people who are not familiar with that should be, the book and the series. And it's a metaphor for what's going on in America today. You have people, seemingly drinking.
There's no separation between church and state, and that was a lie. And it's people. I mean, you can believe what you believe as long as you're not harming children, first and foremost.
I'd say that's correct.
You're not manipulating people, and you're not forcing all of your views on everybody else.
The women.
And I don't know, maybe people are gonna think I'm crazy, but it's scary. What lengths will they go to, to prevent and to have this control?
And that's at the end of the day when Lyle Jeff sits before that couple and demands to know if they're using birth control. What is he doing? Just exerting thug, bully control over people's lives. And
just because he can.
And that's his MO, and that's Warren's MO. And so we've gone all over the map. But I'm hoping before you bail, and again, you're going to go hoop it up in Europe. So envious. So I'll be sidelined for some of the games, that. And you're going to go play ball tonight. So let's wrap this one. 4th anniversary. Thanks for letting me hang around home and bug everybody for these.
I've really been home the past way.
That's true. You've been all over the map.
You do you.
Yeah, you do you, boo. All right. Well, thanks, Dilly.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. That was a good one.
Yeah. Well, signing off. This is Story Hustler. Like and subscribe, and let us know questions, comments, concerns.
Yeah, and even we should even mention the sort of the origin of the origin.
What the heck?
The old book.
Clipboard on the book.
Yeah, because it was going to fall over, and I wouldn't.
Do you not know how to stand a book up? Yeah. Clearly, this man doesn't know.
So I needed help, but there you go. The book also available on Amazon, hardcover.
And there are page numbers now.
Yeah, and it's
we've upgraded, people.
Yeah, it's the new and improved Story Hustler. Murder, mayhem, PTSD. We've got a new improved set. This is our new improved season, and so are we new and improved?
I won't answer that.
Yeah, okay. You're taking the fifth on me already. All right.
It's a common theme in this country.
Yeah. Mr. Giuliani, would you like to know?
Anyway.
Okay.
Signing off, like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. I'm Dylan.
Yeah, I'm Mike.
Yeah, goodbye.
Good night, everybody.